going to get started. And so you can kind of pan the crowd right quick, real slow. So this is at the Lake Granbury Conference Center. Okay, get all the way over. We'll go back. And then, good audio. Yes, you are. Okay, all right, I'll go sit down with Zoe now. That's okay.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Good evening. Thank you for coming tonight. First up, before we start this meeting, I'm going to ask our interpreter to come up and provide directions in Spanish if anyone needs interpretation.
Bueno, muy buenas tardes a todo el público. Si ustedes ocupan de un traductor, tenemos aquí todos los servicios para ustedes. Nomás vayan a la mesa a su mano izquierda y ahí tendremos audífonos para ustedes. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you for joining the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, or TCEQ, as I will refer to it now, for tonight's public meeting. Today is September 9th, 2024. It is 7 p.m. and my name is Lori Garris. I am with the Office of the Chief Clerk at TCEQ. Joining me today from the Office of Chief Clerk are Lori Rowe, Christina Burke, and Jesus Barcena. Wolf Hollow 2 Power LLC has applied to the TCEQ for issuance of proposed state air quality permit 175173, issuance of prevention of significant deterioration air quality permit PSD-TX 1636, and issuance of greenhouse gas PSD air quality permit GHG PSD TX 238 for emissions of greenhouse gases. Before we begin with opening remarks, I would like to go over a few logistics. For your safety, please note the exits in this room. We have several in the back, to the side, and also behind us. Restrooms can be found to the right over here. At this time, I would ask that you silence your cell phones. The purpose of this meeting is to receive formal public comment, which the TCEQ will consider before making any final decisions on this application. as well as to ask TCEQ and the applicant questions concerning this noticed application. No final decisions will be made tonight. We are here to listen to you. For your questions to be answered and voices to be heard, we have a few simple rules to follow. First, participants should be recognized by myself before speaking. All speakers should use professional language and conduct. And participants should engage in behavior that helps lead to an orderly and successful meeting. A successful meeting means we have time for both question and answers and your formal comments. Next, I would like to invite any elected officials to stand. Do we have any elected officials? Great, thank you. Thanks for being here. I would also like to thank Representative Burns for requesting this public meeting. The format for today's meeting is to begin with introductions, then we will have a question and answer session. During this time, the public is encouraged to ask questions and to engage in open discussion with the applicant and TCEQ staff concerning this notice application. Issues raised during this session will only be addressed in the Executive Director's formal response to comments if the issue is also presented during the formal comment period. Question and answers are limited as we will need to move to the formal comment period. During the formal comment period, individuals may present oral comments when called upon in order of registration. So if you were hoping to speak tonight and did not fill out a registration form, please make sure that you do. A time limit will be established to ensure enough time is allowed for every interested person to speak. There will be no answers provided during this formal comment period. However, these comments will be addressed in the Executive Director's formal response to comments. Individuals who have to leave the meeting early or who have more information to provide than the time limit may use e-comments anytime during the open comment period. If you have questions about e-comments, the registration staff can help you. Now I will introduce the permit applicant and then TCEQ staff. We will start with the applicant, and Albert Hatton will speak for tonight's application. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Albert Hatton. I'm joined by Larry Moon, our environmental consultant, and Ben Rim from Jackson Walker. Larry's from Power Engineers. I'm the Director of Environmental Operations for Constellation. I am supporting the permitting effort for the Wolf Hollow 2 expansion project, which is also known as Wolf Hollow 3. I have 26 years of environmental compliance and permitting experience with a focus on air quality. I've been doing compliance and permitting work in Texas as a Constellation employee for the past 15 years. So we are seeking a permit to we're seeking a permit to potentially bring 300 megawatts of natural gas fired generation to our Wolf Hollow facility. As depicted in the poster boards that I have in the back of the room and on the left side of the room, the facility will be located on the west side of our property, just south of our Wolf Hollow 2 entrance along Wolf Hollow Court. The units are designed for peaking services, which means they will generally only be used during periods of peak demand. So that's when the grid needs more power for reliability, and typically the units will not run every hour of every day, and the units certainly won't run every day of every year. Since these units do not run every day of every year, the permit includes a limit on the amount of natural gas that the units can burn, of about a 40% capacity factor. So that means the units are limited to operating about 40% of the year. The turbines are General Electric Model 6Bs, which are highly reliable and meet TCEQ's best available control technology standards. Each turbine is permitted with a maximum output of 44 megawatts and will be used to provide additional power to the Texas grid, dispatchable on short notice at the direction of ERCOT to help ensure reliability, especially during extreme weather events. Thank you for being here tonight. Hopefully I'll be able to answer your questions concerning the permit and the project. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Before I introduce TCEQ staff, I just wanted to note that Senator Birdwell has staff present, Shelley Verlander and Clinton Harned. Thank you for being here tonight. They're in the back. Okay, so next let's go ahead and introduce our TCEQ staff. For air permits, I'm going to ask that Jason Law go ahead and introduce the air permitting staff.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Law. I'm an air permit specialist with the Air Permit Division from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. When the previous air permit was working on the air permit application retired, I was reassigned to the initial permit. The air permit review included three major components of federal applicability, which included prevention of significant deterioration, and a greenhouse gas PSD review. Additionally, a best available control technology review, which included an EPA RACT-backed layer clearinghouse search, and an impacts review, which included modeling and health effects. The result of the review is the drafting of the permit to ensure that the plant operates as represented in the application, as well as ensuring compliance with all federal and state rules. Wolf Hollow has demonstrated that this project meets all applicable rules, regulations, and requirements of the Texas and Federal Clean Air Act. The proposed facilities and controls represent BACT, and the modeling analysis indicates that the proposed projects will not violate national ambient air quality standards, cause an exceedance in the increment, or have any adverse impacts on human health, the environment, soil, vegetation, or any Class 1 areas. The Executive Director of the TCEQ proposed a preliminary determination of issuance of this permit for Wolf Hollow to construct the electric power generating facilities and associated supporting facilities. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We are happy to answer any permanent questions. Additionally, I have my colleagues, Chris Lochran, Energy Section Technical Specialist to my left, and also Justin Cherry, modeler from Air Dispersion Modeling Team. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have, let me take this back out, sorry. We also have staff from our Environmental Law Division. Catherine, if you would like to go ahead.
My name is Catherine Keithley, and I'm an attorney in TCEQ's Environmental Law Division. I want to thank you for coming to the public meeting tonight. I am briefly going to summarize where we are in the administrative process. Tonight's application is for issuance of permit 175173, issuance of prevention of significant deterioration, or PSD, permit PSD TX 1636, and issuance of greenhouse gas, or GHG, PSD permit GHG PSD TX 238. The last day of the public comment period for this permit application is not today, but September 11th, 2024. If you submitted a comment online prior to this meeting, it is already a part of the formal record. You may choose to make additional comments for the record tonight during the formal comment portion, submit a written comment at any time during the meeting, or submit a comment online. After the public comment period ends, the Executive Director will prepare a document called the Response to Comments, or RTC, that will respond in writing to the comments received during the comment period. When we complete the RTC, instructions to access will be mailed to all persons who submitted comments or who are on the mailing list for this permit application. The RTC will include a cover letter that explains how to request a contested case hearing and the deadline for filing such a request. Requests for contested case hearings go before the TCEQ commissioners during a regularly scheduled meeting where the commissioners decide whether to grant these requests. Those who file requests will receive notifications when this meeting is scheduled and find out how to file a formal written response for consideration by the commissioners. For a contested case hearing to be granted, it must be requested by an affected person. To be an affected person, you must demonstrate that you have an interest in the matter not common to the general public. You must also include a physical address in your request so that your proximity to the facility can be determined. Please make sure you include a physical address with your request, even if you would normally receive your mail by a PO box. I'm available to answer questions relating to the administrative process of obtaining this permit. We also have staff available to answer technical questions about the permit application and permitting process.
Thank you. Also from the Environmental Law Division, we have Abigail Atkins. And then from our region, we have Kimberly Fowler and Elizabeth Smith. All right, so now we will move to the question and answer session. When you come to the microphone's right up front, please ask only questions. You want to save your comments for the formal comment period so that they can go on record. I would ask that you ask one question at a time so that we may adequately address it. After you have asked a couple of questions, give others an opportunity to ask questions. If you are interested in asking questions now, and you don't have to sign up if you want to ask questions, you just need to come up to the line if you're interested in asking questions now. Come on in.
I'm Dr. Shannon Wolf. I am Precinct 211 Chair. Wolf Hollow is in Precinct 211. So my first question is, will this facility employ any kind of carbon capture?
No. Carbon capture was proven to not be required to meet the ACT due to their limited operation hours.
Okay. So can I ask my next follow-up
Sure,
question?
go ahead
Okay,
and
thank
ask
you.
the next question.
If this new plant ever runs more than 40% of the time, a 40% capture capacity factor, it will have to comply, I think, with the new EPA rule of carbon capture at gas plants. So how will the TCEQ or EPA monitor whether that is going to happen?
Currently, the applicant has to follow the permit that is in question, which limits the operation hours of the facility.
Okay. May I ask another question?
One more, and then
One more.
You can
Okay.
come back around then if you'd like.
Okay, thank you. So how did this applicant determine the amount of fine particulate matter stated in the notice?
Let's start with the applicant on that one.
Would you like me to re-ask that?
Yeah, as part of the permit application, so emissions are calculated, particularly particulate matter, are based on representations from the manufacturer of the turbine.
Okay, so then the follow-up question would be, what is the existing or background level of the fine particulate matter that any of your studies have uncovered?
So the background monitor used for this application is one in Ellis County in Midlothian.
Okay, so forgive me, my doctorate is not in this area, but could you maybe tell me?
So Midlothian is south of Dallas.
Oh, I understand where that is. Yeah. Yes, I just wanted to know how that was determined.
It's a TCEQ run monitor, and you can get all the data off the website.
Okay, I'll let somebody else ask.
Thank you. Come on up if you have questions, and if you're interested in asking questions next, you can come sit in the front seats. Go right ahead.
Good evening. I'm Cheryl Shadden. So Wolf Hollow 1 and Wolf Hollow 2, are they peaker plants?
No, Wolf Hollow 2 is not a peaker plant.
Is Wolf Hollow 1 a peaker plant?
I do not believe Wolf Hollow 1 operates as a peaking plant, no.
So,
But we do not own or operate Wolf Hollow 1, but I assume it's a base load plant.
okay. So how will this permit account for the harm to the community?
So that, I think, will be more of a question on our modeling side on what we looked at.
So for the project, the applicant starts with their emissions, and it's compared to the SIL, significant impact level, or de minimis level. And if the impact is above that level, then a full impacts analysis is conducted, or a cumulative analysis. So it takes into account off-property sources and determines if there's any issues with that, with the cumulative impact. In this case, everything was below the standard. Most of the pollutants were below the significant impact level. PM 2.5 and NO2 were above, so a full impacts analysis was conducted.
So the impact analysis for just this proposed new plant, or all three combined?
So when a full impact analysis is conducted, you look at everything at the project site plus emissions in the surrounding area. So they included off-property sources out to 50 kilometers. And then in addition to that, a monitoring background is added to that impact as well. And that's to capture anything that wasn't explicitly modeled.
Do we have access to this information?
Yes, you do.
Where?
It can be requested from the TCEQ records division.
In this, it says, the review will not violate any state or federal air quality regulations. It will not have any significant adverse impact on soils, vegetation, or visibility. What about people?
So the NAC standards, they are developed to protect against sensitive populations. They're designed to be protective of the most vulnerable. So be it children, elderly, asthmatics, things like that. So as long as you're showing you're in compliance, then it should be protective.
Okay, so I'm certainly elderly, so I'm in that group for sure.
One last question, and then you can circle back around if you have more, if we have time.
Once the plant is built, is there anything that prevents it from operating longer hours?
Yes, as I said earlier, the permit itself limits the amount of operation hour that the company can do.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Next up.
I guess my question for these two guys right here. I live on 2330 Mitchell Bend Highway, right across the street from that red square that you got lined out there. And steam participates in the air, right? When Wolf Hollow 1 fires up, there's a big black cloud that comes out and drifts right over our house and drifts right to Lake Granbury. So what is this black in that steam?
So this is not on this permit, but I would state that this might be something that I can have our Office of Compliance and Enforcement, the region, come up to ask if you would like more information about if you see something that looks out of the ordinary, what you do.
There's no need me to answer, and you ain't gonna let me talk about it. I'm concerned about fire at Wolf Hollow also. I see no fire monitor nozzles around that plant nowhere. And do you have to rely on Hood County Voluntary Fire Department or Pecan Plantation Fire Department if you have a fire there to put that fire out? I live 800 feet from you. I'm concerned about my place.
Yeah, our operating facility, Wolf Hollow 2, has fire suppression equipment on site, but the facility that we're talking about here, Wolf Hollow 3, will be required to meet fire codes.
Well, I don't really see any at Wolf Hollow 2. Have you got it there also?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Next up.
Hi, my name is Tom Dykes. I live down the end of Mitchell Bend Court, about 4 miles as the crow flies from the plant. My question's pretty generic. It's not real specific about particulates or anything like that. By statute or by best practice, how much margin should there be between a power generating plant like this and the nearest residence?
TCEQ does not have jurisdiction to consider plant location choices made by an applicant unless provided for by statute. And this is not the type of facility that has those statutory requirements. But I can say that zoning and land use are still in effect, like it doesn't override zoning and land use. Or it doesn't override zoning, sorry.
Okay, well, all right, well, that doesn't really answer the question,
Yeah.
but I appreciate that, but, yeah.
So as far as determining impacts, it's defined by statute that applicant has to demonstrate compliance where at ambient air, which is typically the property's fence line. So anything outside of that, you're going to have receptors placed to determine what the impacts are.
Okay, that fence line outside the facility, how big would that normally be? The part of my question is, there's a lot of people that live right on top of this thing. And it's like way closer than seems healthy for lots of different reasons.
Sure. So as I said, so receptors for the model, 25 meters spaced receptors are plotted around the fence line, and that expands out to 200 to 300 meters. And then beyond that, you have, I believe, 100 meters spaced receptors out another like 300 or 400 meters. And then again, another set of receptors. So you have a fine grid, a coarse grid, a medium grid, and then all those data points are where impacts occur, and that's how we determine, where the worst case during worst case operations, worst case met, we get a value of what that would look like.
Okay, so that's the measurement where receptors should be. So there's no statute or anything that determines what the margin should be in terms of how much empty space there should be between a facility like this and a residential area? I guess that's the heart of my question.
No, there is no statutory provision for this type of facility.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Next up.
3 small questions here. I'm not his height. Is the reason for this permit to exceed current legal limits? Or is it just to utilize current legal limits?
It's a great question. They have to meet all air quality rules and regulations.
Okay.
They can't exceed legal limits or it wouldn't be authorized.
Okay. Is the reason for this request, this expansion, that's why they're asking for this request, is that to meet demand created by this data mining facility that's over there?
So this is outside of the jurisdiction. I can ask the applicant if they're able to answer that, but it's not within the jurisdiction of what we noticed today.
Yeah, I'll provide a quick response. So this project the project will be cited to meet just grid demands, increasing grid demands in Texas and to support the ERCOT grid.
One more question?
Does this permit that you're requesting only cover particulate matter in the air? In other words, what we can breathe and what we will digest if we eat the plants and the vegetation in the area?
It's not just particulate matter. They had to evaluate all pollutants. That includes NOx, nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxides, volatile organic compounds, ozone precursors, which include NOx and VOC, and also particulate matter, like you stated earlier.
Which are essentially things that we would breathe or consume.
Yes, there is a table attached to the permit that establishes maximum emission rate limits, but they were modeled and shown to meet all air quality standards set by the EPA, the TCEQ as well. So that includes the federal impacts, national air quality standards, the state property line standards, and state health impact guidelines.
Thank you. Next question?
Hello, I'm Andrew Wolford. I live in Granbury. My question is, in comparing this predicted emissions to current criteria, I begin to read about a 12-month averaging basis, but as I understand from the applicant, this is a peak loaded plant and that it will be cycling up and down quite frequently. How have your emissions criteria taken that into account?
So the MERT table, the maximum emission rate table that I mentioned earlier, has hourly emission rate limits and annual emission rate limits. So in addition to the MERT table that I mentioned, this permit special conditions has requirements to ensure that the MERT is met, including special condition number 6, which limits the maximum amount of fuel that the plant may burn. So the company must keep records to demonstrate that they comply with that. The Rule 30 TAC 116.110G requires the applicant to comply with the permit application and submit an accurate application representation. In other words, they can't submit an application and not operate the way they represent it. They're required by 116.110G to accurately represent their proposed operation and meet the way they operate it or represent it.
So let me clarify. The table that sets the criteria for short-term emissions on an hourly basis is based on fuel consumption and not emissions?
The emission rates are based on the fuel consumption plus emission factor. So you have the activity, which is the fuel consumption, and you have the emission factor, which is the emission rate per amount of fuel burned. So you combine those two, and that gives you the emission rate. And that's what they have to comply with. In addition to meeting what's in the MERT table, they also had to show that they were protective of the health and environment. That's the health impacts that the modeler spoke about earlier.
All right, and about what is the ratio, let's say on an hourly emission basis, in the special table versus the continuous running period of time?
I'm not sure I understand the question because they have to...
How are the criteria related to each other? By a factor of 2, a factor of 4?
I'll have to defer to the applicant, but the way it usually is done is that the hourly emission rate accounts for short-term higher rates during short periods, and then the annual reflects a rolling 12-month period that's specified in the MERT, but I'll have for the exact details on the emission calculations.
Yeah, if I understand the question right, so when we're doing a permit application, first we look at the max hourly emissions. That's usually for combustion turbines, that occurs on a really cold day, and then on an annual basis, we look at the fact that these are going to be 40% capacity factor, and we calculate annual emissions. So depending on the pollutants, they have different averaging periods. So for instance, particulate matter has a 24-hour average, and then an annual average limit. Nitrogen oxide has a 1-hour limit. Carbon monoxide has a 1-hour and an 8-hour limit.
So I guess my question has a couple of components to it. One is, what's the difference between the long-term average value and the short-term? And the second is, will you be producing more pollutants during a startup of those turbines due to less efficient operation, less efficient combustion, generation of more pollutants?
Yeah, we are required to identify startup-related emissions, and particularly NOx and VOC are higher during startups. When we do our dispersion modeling for NOx, we actually make a really conservative assumption that we're modeling that startup emission rate like every hour of the year.
And how many times do you think the plant's going to be up and down in a typical year?
You want to? I'd have to look at the application, see what was in the modeling file. I think it's documented. I believe that information is documented in the permit application. I'd have to open up the permit application to see what we documented for modeling purposes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next question. Come on up.
Hello, I'm from Precinct 202, Carolyn Reeves. I wanted to probably ask this question to y'all. Who's going to be paying for this power plant? The community?
So the company will be paying for the power plant. We did request a loan application from the Texas Energy Fund. If we're successful, we'll use that loan application, but my company will be paying for this.
But when you roll out the electricity, you're saying that you're going to provide the community with this electricity. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we dispatched in accordance to ERCOT, in accordance with ERCOT, and then.
And as a business, you're going to need to make money, and so you're going to charge us, the customer, for more money because you have to build a new power plant.
I'm not, I do the air permit. I'm not sure the ins and outs of all the financials, but ultimately, yes, the Constellation builds the plant, pays for the plant, and then we have,
So it's going to cost us more money here.
So let's focus on the notice application. Next question.
Hi, I'm John Highsmith, and my question is, due to the fact that this new facility is adding pollution to an existing gas plant, what will be different about this permit?
I don't know if they're able to compare those permits.
Will it be a discrete permit just for this, or does it get rolled into Wolf Hollow too?
They filed a separate initial permit for 8 simple cycle turbines, but our review is limited to the 8 new simple cycle units, not the existing, so we can't speak to that. That's not within the scope of our review.
But as I mentioned earlier, from a modeling perspective, if a pollutant is above its significant impact level, then a full impacts analysis is required, which takes into account any existing sources. And as I said earlier, PM 2.5 and NO2 had a full impacts analysis, and so those other sources were included in that demonstration, and it still shows compliance.
And that's a 50-kilometer radius?
Yeah, they looked at out 50 kilometers and included all applicable sources within that 50 kilometers in the model.
When you say applicable, would you?
Well, meaning if it has that pollutant, if a facility has that pollutant, it was included.
Okay, all right.
Great, thank you. Next question.
Hi, Clint Helton, Precinct 218, Republican Precinct Chair. I think you may have dealt with this question earlier with an earlier questioner, but I just wanted to confirm it in a more succinct fashion. The 40% figure, I believe you quoted earlier for average usage of the plant, right? Wasn't it a 40%?
It's an equivalent number. The permit actually includes a natural gas throughput limitation. Okay. I just was using 40% as an approximate.
Okay, and is that 40% coincide with the limits of emissions that you described earlier?
I can answer, but yes, the natural gas throughput is documented in the permit, and I think as TCEQ answered, the emissions are estimated based on that natural gas throughput.
Right, of the 40%. So obviously more usage produces more output. And so the second question is, news sources report that power demand in Texas is set to almost double in 6 years from now, 2030. How do we know that 40% will remain constant? How do we know that it won't go up to 100% by that? Because to meet that increasing power demand.
Let's give TCEQ staff a chance.
Thank you for the question. Again, it is in their permit that the limitation for the operation is set to that amount, so they can't go over without meeting compliance.
So more plants will have to be generated so they can all remain at the 40% to meet the 100%, to almost doubling the power demand by 2030.
So what he was saying, Yeah, they would have to stay in compliance with the permit. If they wanted to go expand beyond the permit, they'd have to come in for a new permit and make sure they meet compliance with standards.
To increase it beyond the 40%?
Yes. If they wanted to go beyond the 40%, they would have to do an amendment or something along those lines.
Which is very likely, considering the demand will be almost double in 6 years. Very likely. Almost certainly. Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, I'm Dr. Don Christensen, a retired family practice doc, and I was involved in the downwinders in the Midlothian bit. Even went to the state to testify. So there's a lot of gibberish. You guys are experts that are supposed to keep us safe. So I want you to start over there and answer the question, if you could build your dream home in the downwind of these plants, and you're going to spend $1 million on your home, and you're going to raise all your kids and animals, would you build there?
So that is not a question we can answer. That's a personal opinion. But since you are a doctor, if you want to check in on the health.
Want each of these people.
No, sir, that's not going to happen tonight. But
they're the experts. Why won't they answer that?
Because that's a personal opinion. But we can talk about health tonight.
I'm talking about health.
We're not going to answer that question, sir.
Well, then it's a bad meeting.
Next question.
Melanie Graff, Precinct 408, and I'm going to piggyback off of his question a little bit. I'm a 2-time cancer survivor, and I know that there's other cancer survivors in here as well. I want to know what physical ailments could occur from the pollutants that are involved with this plant.
Okay, we can definitely talk about the health of this.
Well, as long as they're in compliance, there shouldn't be any adverse effects.
Let's let them answer.
That's what these standards are set for, is to be protective. And as long as they're below those standards, then it's protective.
If they're not,
if you've got to let the person speak at the mic. If you want to speak, come up, you'll get a chance.
If they're not below the standards, what kind of ailments are we looking at, possibly?
That I can't answer. I don't know.
And then my last question is, you mentioned the vulnerable population. How can you specifically protect the vulnerable population? I just want to know, you mentioned it, but what exactly are you going to do? What plans do you have in place to protect those people?
So as I said earlier, the permit includes a maximum emission rate table and special conditions that the company has to comply with. And so the emission rate limits in the MERT table that I mentioned earlier were demonstrated to meet impacts. Those air quality standards consider all populations vulnerable, young, elderly, all people. So by complying with the permit special conditions, the company has to keep records. And so if they exceed what's in the permit, then they're not complying. So that's what the purpose of the permit is, and that's the scope of our review. If people have concerns, you're more than welcome to contact the regional office and conduct an investigation.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Next up.
All right, you mentioned there were some receptors that are supposed to be so many feet outside the plant. You are aware that there is 0 feet from the plant to somebody else's property. There is no industrial area. It's personal property, every inch of it, except for 2425. Okay, and then they touch it on the other side. So there is 0 property. So what does a receptor look like?
So a receptor is just a point in the model. And it's a grid design. As I said, it starts at the fence line of the project site and extends out. Okay. So it's capturing everything from the fence line out.
What is capturing it?
The model.
The model.
Right.
Okay, so you're not measuring pollution. So you don't know what's hitting my property. Because you said it goes out 800 meters. I'm inside 800 meters. And when you talk about health issues, my wife's a type 1 diabetic. So yeah, we got them. Okay, so I want to know where the receptors are measuring the pollution on my property.
So
how do you know that you're safe at my house?
So the model is, one, It's designed to be a conservative representation of what impacts would look like if the applicant's operating. And what we do, we set a grid based on the fence line of the applicant's property, and it determines out of its worst case operations associated with worst case met conditions to determine what that ground level maximum concentration is.
So would the worst case be when they blow off steam and blow out a window in my house? Does that count? Is that a worst case operation?
That sounds pretty bad.
Would it be a worst case operation when my ground shakes and my whole house shakes?
So these sound like formal comments, things that are...
That's a question, because I'm wanting to know what the receptors are that's measuring this. You're telling me that I want to know, so he mentioned the worst case.
Let's let him try to answer. Okay?
We identify the worst case concentration based on the parameters set by the permit.
But if those worst case happen, do I need to worry about my health? Should
No.
I go see a doctor when that worst case happens?
No.
Because it's happened a lot lately.
I can't speak to any upsets or anything like that. What I can speak to is the representations made in the permit are in compliance with state and federal regulations.
And in air pollution, do we count noise along with that? Is that part of air pollution?
Just a second. Legal will answer that.
Okay.
TCEQ does not have authority under the Texas Clean Air Act to require or enforce noise abatement measures.
It's fine. That's what I was asking, is if that's part of it. So you said that there's a penalty for violating the regulations. Okay? And although they're not violating that we know of any air quality right now or running too often, but we already know that they are violating laws. So how do we enforce that? How do y'all enforce it? How do we know that they're not out of compliance?
Let's have our region come up and speak on that.
Good evening. My name is Kimberly Fowler, and I'm the Air Section Manager in our Dallas-Fort Worth Regional Office. And so a facility like Wolf Hollow, in their permit, they have several permits. So we are required to investigate them on a yearly basis. And so when we conduct our investigations, we are reviewing their permit conditions. We're reviewing any requirements that they have to keep records and things like that during our investigations. They're also required to submit different annual, semi-annual reports to the agency, and those are also reviewed on an annual basis.
So it's self-reporting. Y'all don't actually do it. They tell you if they goof.
So within their permit, they do have operational standards, right? And those operational standards will have requirements that they do keep records. So the records that they provide to us, we will match those records against what is written in the permit, what's in the MERT table, what's within the operational requirements, and that's how we determine compliance within there.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next question.
Hi there, James Wall. Just a couple questions for y'all. First, I know we're talking about all these particulate matter, the carbon monoxide. Do we know how far out that's going to spread over? Is it just going to be a couple miles, or do we have a definitive idea of, oh, this could reach 15, 20, 30 miles outside?
Let's let our modeler.
I can't give you the exact number of what the plume gradient is. So I don't have that. If you want to make that a formal comment, we can get you that information specifically for each pollutant. I will say for carbon monoxide, because it's de minimis, it doesn't extend. It's below its significant impact level. The only time you get a significant gradient is if you're above your significant impact level. So PM 2.5 and NO2 would have what's called an area of influence. As I said, I don't have that number up the top of my head, but if you want to make that a formal comment, we can get you that information.
Gotcha. And then one other question. So we were going in and talking about people who are in risk in the community. My mother's an asthmatic. we don't live right outside the Wolf Hollow plant, but we live in Granbury, and so we have concerns. What is being done to go ahead and make sure that we capture all this particular matter to make sure it doesn't go ahead and spread out further and further?
Well, as we stated earlier, they have to show they meet impacts, namely the National Air Quality Standards, the state property line standards, and health impacts. So as far as what you can do to ensure that happens, if at any time you feel like there is a nuisance or something that's affecting your health, you're more than welcome to notify the regional office if you feel like they're not complying with the terms and conditions of the permit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have been going on questions for about 35 minutes or so. We're going to go about 13 more minutes. So take your best question or two and we'll keep moving through. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Jim Jarrett. I live here in Granbury. And it's just for my edification. Are these receptors, are these physical measuring devices?
No, it's just part of the model, and it identifies just the area around. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Come on up.
Hi, my name is Joe Weber, and I've submitted my comments for the record. I look forward to your response, but I have a couple questions that come to mind.
Maybe speak up on the, or pull
Sure.
it up just a little bit. You're tall. There you go.
Thank you. So my first question would go to the limiting the number of hours. So why is that in place? If you could explain, in the interest of time, where I'm going with that, it implies to me that we're bumping up from some type of cap or maximum level.
So your question is, why are they limited?
The hours, why are the number of hours being limited?
Oh, that's a great question. So
Because
actually,
it implies we're bumping up on some maximum.
no, let's be abundantly clear. There's no hour limit operation of the permit. What special condition number 6 does is limits them to 13,076 million BTUs per hour. That's a firing rate. That's a fuel usage. They have to keep records to demonstrate that they comply with that. So if they keep those records, then that shows that they meet the annual MERT limits such that they're not exceeding the annual emission rate limits.
I see. So in the state of Texas, is there any similar compound like this where you have 3 generating facilities in close proximity to one another, centrally located like this? And as a follow-up to that, in the interest of time, is there a presumption of approval or denial if we end up with Wolf Hollow 4, 5, 6? When is enough enough?
I understand your concern, but tonight we are here to talk about the air permit for the power plant at issue. Also, I do just want to stress that we have not made a final decision, so we will consider your comments while making our decision. I know you already left your formal comments, but if you're interested in leaving more during the formal comment portion, I would encourage you to do so.
Well, I didn't hear an answer. Thank you. Okay, over here.
Last question, because I have multiple people.
I'll make it my last question. So I heard you earlier say that the energy would not be used to supply the Bitcoin facility. Is that correct?
So this is off the noticed application. If they want to answer it, they can. This will be the last one for you, though.
Thank you. Well, I do. No, I'm going to have one quick follow-up.
No, sir.
Yeah, so this facility is to serve the ERCOT grid, and it's intended to provide peaking power to the ERCOT grid. This facility will not be directly connected to a Bitcoin facility.
I see.
Okay, so sir, sir, please.
I just have
you
a
have
quick...
5 people behind you. Come on. Pick your first 2 top questions. What do you have?
Thank you. I've got a question about your model. Is that software or is that actual a sensing device that you're using to collect the
It's software.
So
The model, again, is a conservative representation, and we know this because the model is tested against real-world data, like monitoring data. So we know how it impacts.
Well, sorry, sir. I've spent 30 years in the semiconductor industry, and I know about these gases, and models can take you so far. It's like a rapid test on a device. But to really get the data, you need to have sensors out there that really measure what's going on. And so I would encourage you to do that. Software models are fine for certain things, but when you're really trying to find out the real particulate and gases that are out there. You need sensing devices to really, I mean, we went through all kinds of scrutiny and that kind of stuff, okay? And then the other question I have.
I think they might have an answer for you. Just
Okay.
1 second.
So the Air Permit Division doesn't have jurisdiction over the air monitoring network, but we do have additional information on the current air network model, the current air monitoring network. And so if you would like, you can definitely pick up a handout and.
Okay, good. I'd like to look at it. Can I ask one last question?
Go ahead.
This is for you guys again. Have you, in looking at this permit, granted any waivers or deviations from your standard? No waivers. You're holding everything to the book, huh?
That is correct. That is
okay.
correct.
And I do have another question. It's real quick. How does the standards here in this state compare with other places, other states? Are you at the low end of the spec? Are you? I mean, national standards are pretty loose.
The standards are established by EPA,
okay.
and it's the same for all the states.
Okay. All right. Well, I encourage you to get some sensors to really find out what's going on out there.
Thank you. Next person.
Hi, I'm Chip Jocelyn from Somervell County, and we're the neighboring county south of here. So, anyway, just a point of clarification. I was trying to figure out. It sounds like you guys do monitor, but you monitor this air from Midlothian, and then you guys monitor yourself. Monitor is that correct? And so we have to depend on everything that they say when it comes to emissions and whatnot. And then this lady said that she looks at the books at some point, but exactly. When do they monitor? Do they monitor at peak performance? Do they monitor at night when everything's shut down? When does the process actually happen?
Yeah, there's a couple different things. For something like fuel burn, there's pretty robust requirements on how our equipment needs to be calibrated and certified to monitor the amount of fuel burn. For the emissions themselves, what the permit requires us to do stack testing. And that stack testing is required to be done under worst case normal operating conditions.
Normal operating.
Yeah, worst case conditions that the plant operates at a normal basis.
And that was right. I want a point of clarification. You guys don't actually monitor the air around here. Is that correct?
Again, the Air Permit Division doesn't have jurisdiction over the air monitoring network. That's under the Air Monitoring Division. Again, if you would like, there are handouts how you can contact them and additional information.
So once a year, the air monitoring network, they look at where the monitors should be placed. And some of that is based on what the population is suggesting too. So I would suggest that you look at that. It's a pretty extensive air monitoring network. So the state of Texas is measuring what's happening with our air, and we do have equipment that can measure that.
And you do it on site, not just in Midlothian?
They're where the air monitors are located in the state of Texas, and that map should show where they're located.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So just to further answer a little bit more about monitoring at the site, when our investigators conduct on-site investigations, we do have handheld monitoring equipment along with the optical gas imaging camera that we use during our investigations to monitor emissions at the site while we're there conducting our investigations.
Thank you. Come on up. Next question.
All right, just one question. I'm Tim Bolton, Precinct Chair 216, and I want to know I don't want to assume that it's a foregone conclusion that you guys will approve the permit, but it certainly sounds like that, and so I want to know under what circumstances would you deny besides public outcry?
I understand your concern. I'm here representing the executive director, and therefore I can't give you legal advice. However, everyone is entitled to legal representation should you seek to contact an attorney. You can also contact the Office of Public Interest Counsel, and they might be able to help you. I don't know if you want to write it down, but their number is 239-6363. I can also write that down and give it to you at the break. But also, we have not made a final decision, and we do take your comments into consideration. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a few super quick questions, actually piggybacking on that. So the first question, and I don't mean this to sound obstructionist, D. Conrad, Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Glen Rose in Somervell County. My question is this a formality? And what I mean by that is, do you have rules or guardrails in place that say, hey, as long as they don't exceed X, Y, Z, it's going to get done? Because it's clear that there's public outcry, and this is just a drop in the bucket of the actual concern that's out there. So it's clear that there's public outcry, and I would bet if we did a raise of hands, these folks don't want this to happen. But I know that sometimes your hands are tied, and there's legal requirements, and that's all you can do. And so that's my question is this a formality, meaning you're doing it because you got to do it, but they've met the standards, and so we're going to move forward regardless?
I do just want to reemphasize that we have not made a final decision, and we do consider your
I'm
comments.
asking about it's a process question. It's simply, I sit on city council, there are certain times, this is the rules, and this is what you got to do, and I might not like it, but I got to do it, because that's the process. So my question is about the process. Is there a process that allows for public outcry to be enough of a reason? Even if it was like, it's going to be magical, it's going to shoot fairy dust, it's going to be beautiful. If everybody here said, we don't like fairies, we don't want it here, is that enough to say, could that be legally, procedurally enough, or are there certain criteria that unless those are met?
I would encourage you to leave a formal written comment or...
Okay, let's let her, so, I mean, we have the statutes that we have to follow, right? We have the statutes. It's up to these meetings for you to bring your formal comments. These might be things that we haven't considered, and that is something that our air permitting and our legal will look at. So they're not a formality. We do have to follow our statutes, but you may bring information that we were not privy to, that they are able to use.
So it would have to be something that aligned with one of those statutes. So meaning if we find that, oh, there's this particular thing that's happening that just wasn't on y'all's radar. So would it have to be something that, if you're going to say the same thing, it's cool. I got it. Just to save time.
Let's give her a chance. She's new, and we are public servants.
Yeah, same.
I just would say that I would really encourage you to contact the Office of Public Interest Counsel.
Okay. My question for you guys real quick is, if this gets approved tomorrow, boop, you get to go. How soon before it's up and running?
Yeah, so I think if it got approved tomorrow, we'd likely be ready to commence construction near the end of the year, beginning of next year. And I think the unit would probably be ready to go into service in mid-2026.
But let's note this is not going to be approved tomorrow. We still have a ways to go. Okay, so
thank you.
I have time for 3 more questions, so bring it up.
Name's Craig Mayberry, Precinct 202 Chair. Question for legal, a very general, broad one. Approximately, what will be the financial penalties be incurred when the parameters of this permit are routinely violated?
So we're here to discuss the permit, but if Region would like to talk about the complaint process, the enforcement process.
So we don't have a representative here today from our enforcement division. So our enforcement division is the ones who would review the violations after we have referred them to them. And so they are the ones that have different penalty calculation worksheets that they would use to determine what the penalties are. If you want to leave that as a formal comment, the enforcement division may be able to provide you with more details on how that
I was just asking in general, is it 5,000, is it 500,000? Because from what I can see, as it is right now, with the permits the way they are knowingly and willingly and deliberately and chronically and continually taking the petty little $500 a day fine because it's nothing to them. If it's a $500,000 violation, they're going to continue to do the same thing because that's half a day's salary for them.
Right. So yeah, the enforcement division would have that information.
You're saying this is all window dressing. It's really all it is. Because to have these kind of a permit is the same kind of permit I have in my back pocket to go. It says, I am required to comply to go 65 down the highway, but what's going to stop me from routinely going over 75 and 80? Nothing.
So that's a comment. Come back with your formal comment so that they can give you more information on where.
They who?
TCEQ. We'll look at whenever you
Is
formally.
that not what this is?
Yes, but sometimes there's questions that we do not have the answers with us right here because it's an agency of 2,800 people with different specialties. Next up.
Dave Eagle, I'm a county commissioner here. Just wanted one of my questions you answered about when you estimate, if you were issued the permit tomorrow, when you estimate you'll be through. The question I've got, do you have any plans to come to the county and seek a 312 tax abatement at all?
Yeah, I don't have a direct answer to that. I'm responsible for the air permitting. I'm sure that if we...
Well, this is a property tax abatement I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Unfortunately, I don't know. I'm just responsible for the
Okay, and the question for y'all, how many of these types of permits have you received or have been requested the last 36 months? Do you know?
We do not know at the top of our head. However, you can go online, search our online records, and you can find that information.
How many do you think that you've been a part of in the last 24 to 36 months?
Can you define exactly? Are you talking simple cycle? Are you talking combined
Permit
cycle?
like this?
I personally have not done simple cycle. I've done combined cycle, and I've done two.
Okay. And the last question I'll leave. How many have you denied? How many do you know have been denied out of the ones that have been requested?
When you say denied, I mean, that's kind of a strong language. We receive...
Let's let them answer.
We receive the application, we review it, we provide notices of deficiency. They have to change the terms and conditions of the permit because it's a draft and they have to demonstrate they meet impacts and health effects. So we don't put a stamp that says denied. What we do is we make sure the permit complies with the rules and regulations.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. This is the last question. You've been waiting. Come on up and ask your questions.
Hi, thank you. Thank you again for doing public comments and questions and answers. I had several questions, but I'm just going to ask the most important. I'm also in healthcare, so health is my biggest concern. So I know we've mentioned standards and meeting standards with pollution and whatnot. So two parts to the question. First, are these standards changing? So how often are the standards changing?
So the National Ambient Air Quality Standards are reviewed every 5 years. PM 2.5, annual PM 2.5 just recently changed. It was originally 12 micrograms per cubic meter. It's now 9. So they are continually reviewed and adjusted as data becomes available.
Okay, thank you. And then second part of the question is, with these standards, does the standard being set mean or guarantee that a person or people will not have any health effects from those limits?
That is the goal of the standard, is to be protective.
No, I understand it's the goal, but can it be guaranteed?
I don't know that anything can be guaranteed, but
Okay, because again, right, those standards being met may not always agree with either immunocompromised, and things change, right? Person to person, everything's different. So that's, I think, what a lot of people are concerned with, is making sure that what's put in is going to be not a health risk for the majority of people.
sure. And again, as I said, as long as they're in compliance with the permit, based on the information we have, that it will be protective and should not be an issue.
But again, it doesn't guarantee that somebody or people will not have an effect from pollution that's being produced, released, et cetera, from the operation.
Well, again, if they're under the standard, then by definition, they're protective.
Okay, but not a guarantee. Thank you.
Thank you. So those were the comments. No, sir, sorry. We are going to take a break. You can come up and ask during that break if people are up here. But we do have to take a break. Our main reason to be here is to hear your formal comments. The question and answer is just icing on the cake. So we are going to take a 5-minute break. Come back at 8:11. If staff are up here, feel free to ask those questions. You can write those questions too. So thank you very much.
will be back in 5 minutes at 8:11. Thank you.
Thank you. I couldn't do the math. 30 miles. But does that mean it only takes 30 miles or does it extend beyond that? It's hard to believe this. And all that. So they said essentially the whole gases.
I wonder why they're putting in 80.
Well, I want to know what they meant because all these farmers and ranchers, how far out are they? They want to probably on the model. I know it's okay because we all feel the same way. We all feel exactly the same way. But I wanted to know if they put their properties on models. I'm not getting that, so I just. That lady that was talking that's got all the beads on, she said, I think she had the ranch and all that, and she works it, and she's got animals that get sick and all problems. Oh, no, Sandy. Yeah, that's what Sandy saying. She's got long blonde hair, she's been here. Oh, well, maybe. Yeah. But it's a lady there, I swear I've seen her in the neighborhood. Yeah, she has a big home. Oh, no. This lady lives over there, right across from the hall. Oh, yeah. I know a lot of her. She probably was actually.
Good evening. In about 30 seconds, we're going to go ahead and start again. So please go ahead and take your seats so that we can go to the formal comment session. So before we start, the applicant has one more question they're going to answer, and then we're going to have our interpreter come back up just in case.
Yeah, just in response to the question about the tax abatement, I did get clarification that we're not seeking a 312 tax abatement.
Okay, thank you. And so now I'm going to have the interpreter come up.
Buenas noches a todo el público. Nuevamente, ¿verdad? Si ocupan de los servicios del traductor, tenemos aquí los transmitores aquí a su mano derecha. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. So I just want to thank everyone for their valid questions and concerns. Again, thank you for joining the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. And this is the formal comment session on Wolf Hollow 2 Power, LLC's application for issuance of proposed state air quality permit 175173, issuance of prevention of significant deterioration or PSD air quality permit PSD TX 1636. And issuance of greenhouse gas or GHG PSD air quality permit GHG PSD TX 238 for emissions of greenhouse gases. It is September 19, 2024. It's 8:15 p.m. And as I stated earlier, my name's Lori Garris. I'm with the Office of Chief Clerk at TCEQ. For the formal comment period, individuals may present oral comments when called upon in order of registration. There will be a 3-minute time limit to ensure that everyone can provide their statements. There will be no answers provided during the session. However, these comments will be addressed in the Executive Director's formal response to comments. As you come to the microphone, please first state your full name so that we can make sure we have your information correct. I just want to apologize if I state your name incorrectly. I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to call you up in groups of 5, and if your name is called, I suggest you come up and sit in one of these front chairs until it's your turn to provide your comments. So, also, as you speak, I will put this up when you have 1 minute left, Thank you. And so that way you kind of know how your timing is going. So our first person is Donna Adair. After Donna, I have... Just a second. There's a bunch of papers here. Go ahead, Donna Adair, and then I'll grab the next person. So if Donna wants to come up, I'll state your full name, and then you may begin.
My name's Donna Adair, 8002 Contrary Creek Road, Granbury, about a mile from the Wolf Hollow Power Plant. I have to admit, I'm not real hopeful after hearing all this that this is doing any good, but here goes. I'm asking that the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality deny permit 175-173 requested by the owners of Wolf Hollow Power Plant, Constellation Energy. At our house, my husband and I, we go walking. There's a huge plume of steam, air pollution, whatever it is, coming right over our house. And that's just with 4 turbines. Add 8 more. Air pollutants will be emitted at significant levels, including but not limited to carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, sulfur hexafluoride, and sulfuric acid mist. I have done a little bit of research, and some of these do go for months, and they go for thousands of miles. I fully realize this is concerning the Wolf Hollow Power Plant, but I believe the Marathon Bitcoin mining plant has been a major factor in the requesting of said permit. Constellation Energy, the owner of Wolf Hollow Power Plant, leases the land and supplies the power to the Marathon Bitcoin mining plant, which is lovely. A study by Earth Justice stated that before Marathon Bitcoin mining began their operation, the Wolf Hollow Power Plant was running at 66% capacity, and it's now running at 99% capacity. Hence the need for more power to be generated. I'm in no way against adding more power plants, but in a more industrialized zone with maybe a 3-mile buffer around it, like several other power plants have, and not in the rural area where people live and raise their families. Thank you, and I pray that this permit will be denied.
Thank you. So the next few people who are coming up, I have Cheryl Shadden, Morgan Stanley, Shannon Wolf, and Karen Pearson. So let's start with those. Cheryl?
Hi, I'm Cheryl Shadden. I live across the street from Constellation Energy. I'm bombarded day and night by sounds from Constellation Energy, valves exploding 4 times this last year, keeping me up half the night or into the mornings. Scares me to death. My windows shake, my walls shake, my dogs are scared. I've had a horse that's died this last year, a dog that's died this last year. I don't sleep at night. I have headaches, nausea, sleep disturbances, heart palpitations, stress, shortness of breath, coughing, dizziness, and fatigue, permanent conduction hearing loss. The permanent conduction hearing loss isn't just from Marathon Digital. You guys have something to do with it as well. These are pictures of what it's like living at my home and all of the clouds of smoke that come off of Wolf Hollow 1 and Wolf Hollow 2, not to mention the noxious odors. I live with this 24/7. The lights blaring in my windows, I can't take it anymore. I'm right across the street from you. Constellation Energy is not a good neighbor. This air permit needs to be denied. I live right across the street from it. I can't go outside on my own property, day or night, because of all of the noise from across the street and the lights blaring in my windows. I've lost my quality of life. I've lost my property value. My property value is worthless, absolutely worthless. My property value is valued less now than it was 27 years ago. There's no noise barrier up between Wolf Hollow and the community, nothing at all. We are tired of living this way. You are not a good neighbor.
Thank you. Do you want to turn those in? Morgan Stanley? Go ahead and state your full name.
My name is Morgan Stanley, and I live about 6 miles from the plant and the Bitcoin mining, and I can hear the noises. You know, I started following this when other people were having issues, and I can stand outside and hear the noise. I'm also concerned about the air quality. I'm an asthmatic, and ever since I was little, I've had asthma issues. I was in and out of the emergency room all the time when I was little, and I lived in a more rural area, not surrounded by things like this. And I've got a child that attends Mambrino STEAM Academy, which is right next door. And my concern is for him and his sister that will follow behind him and their health. And any other children in the area, they're going to have to go out to recess and play with possible air pollution that could affect their health. I've got a mother-in-law that lives with me. She's elderly. She's got lots of health problems too. I'm concerned about her health. And I guess that's about all I wanted to say. I'm concerned about everything and my property values in the future because I plan to stay here for the rest of my life.
Thank you. Shannon Wolf.
Thank you. I'm Shannon Wolf, Republican Precinct 211 Chairwoman. Thank you for your important work that you do, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you on this urgent topic. And it impacts not only Wolf Hollow, but the entire Hood County. When I learned that Texas Energy Fund, and the Texas Senate's effort to provide a stable electrical grid for Texas based on reliable energy sources, I was supportive, and I still am. What I'm not supportive of is for Wolf Hollow 2 power plant to be allowed to increase production and therefore pollution. Wolf Hollow is not an industrial area. It is located close to Lake Granbury and to Pecan Plantation. The power plant is surrounded by ranches and farms and homes and churches and an elementary school. With the exception of this power plant's property, the area is beautiful. Until recently, you could enjoy wildlife, including an endangered species. Everyone in my area, including Pecan, received a notice from your agency alerting us to the petition and what it meant for us. The air pollution, you said, would increase significantly. In part, your letter read, the proposed facility would emit the following air contaminants in a significant amount. And Donna already read some of those things that were in your letter in significant amounts, including sulfuric acid. What was not in that letter, and I found that very puzzling, were heavy metals. They were not mentioned. And yet in my research, heavy metals are included in many of the byproducts from the natural gas, including mercury. Wolf Hollow produces energy based on natural gas and water. So that pollution's not going to stay in Precinct 2. That pollution will be in Granbury Lake. It will cover the city as well as the rest of Hood County, Somervell County, Johnson County, and who knows how far it's going to go. The ranches in this area sell their cattle to local meat markets. The grass that they eat will become contaminated. We know mercury lives in grass. We know that. The soil that farmers grow crops will be contaminated, and our lake where people fish and boat and swim will be contaminated. I have 2 beautiful granddaughters, ages 2 and 7. Their health will be impacted by these pollutants. Back in 2020, at the height of the COVID pandemic, I contracted COVID, and I also ended up with bilateral pneumonia, and my lungs have never fully recovered. I live 3 miles from that plant. I am worried about what's going to happen as a result of these pollutants. I want to finish by saying that Granbury was named the best historic small town in America for 2 or 3 consecutive years. And now we have the distinction of being the celebration capital of Texas. We have a lot of festivals. Some of those festivals are 2 blocks off the lake. I'm asking for you to help protect Hood County, protect Granbury from pollution. Thank you.
Thank you. If you did not get a chance to finish your comments, you can turn them in if you would like. Okay, great. Thank you. You can turn them right to me. Next up, Karen Pearson.
Thank you for allowing all of us to have this time to express our concerns for ourselves, our community, and for each other.
Go ahead and state your full name first.
Karen Pearson. I live at 2330 Mitchell Bend Highway. It's approximately, as the crow flies, 800 feet from our driveway to Constellation's property line. I've lived there for the past 19 years. My parents have lived there for the last at least 30 years. We were there first. I'm opposed to this facility being built or expand, and I urge TCEQ not to issue the permit for the sake of all of our lives out there. I'm very concerned as it's already negatively impacted us, Wolf Hollow 1 and 2, and also adding to the other issues that have been mentioned, the Marathon Digital Bitcoin mining that gets some of the energy from Wolf Hollow. Some of the perils that we faced in the area are health, devalued property, absence of wildlife, and peace and quiet. In the area of health, I live with my 81-year-old parents who are really at the end of the quality of their life, and so that's part of my mission, is to help to give them the best quality that they have, what's left. I've seen my dad suffer from significant hearing loss to the point of him not being able to hear normal conversations. We have a front porch where we all gather, family and friends, to sit and drink coffee and just enjoy each other's company. He cannot hear any of that at a reasonable level. He can't hear what the doctors are saying when he goes to take my mom to her appointments or his own appointments. He can't hear what the pharmacists are telling him about his medications. He has no hearing at all to be able to have a quality of life, really. He can't hear what the great grandkids are saying to him whenever we are all sitting around on the front porch, just again in casual conversation. He complains of constant hearing in his ears. He was diagnosed with hypertension at the age of 80. Placed on meds. He stays on edge most of the time, and his anxiety literally shuts him down in some days. The daily functioning for he and my parents has really declined a lot. The other thing, probably most important right now, is my mom just recently, on July 15th through the 22nd, was put in NICU for what they thought was a stroke. It turned out to not to be a stroke. It took almost 5 weeks for us to get the results back. University of Michigan, the neurosurgeon who did her brain biopsy, are all puzzled because it has come back that it is not cancer, it is not a tumor, and it is not a mass. They cannot put anything medical to explain on what this thing is inside of her head. So if it's not medical, then could it be environmental? So currently where we stand right now is we are at doctors doing toxicology tests. They have been referred to toxicology specialists to try to figure out what this is in her head. She has vertigo all the time, totally imbalanced, she does not have a quality of life. They don't sleep, we don't sleep, hair loss, I have hypertension. It's stressful. I work from home, so I'm around that stuff 24/7, and so are they. So this is definitely impacting our quality of life, and I just ask you, please do not grant the extension of this project for all of our sakes in this community.
Thank you. I also, on this same sheet, I have Nick Browning and Virginia Browning. Okay? Go ahead and state your full name first.
My name is Nick Browning. I live at 2330 Mitchell Bend Highway. I live right across the highway from that square red circle you got right there. And we hear this stuff 24/7 when y'all got that plant going. At first I thought it was Bitcoin, but it's not. It's Wolf Hollow 2. But I'm opposed to this, and I'm going to tell you why. This is my opinion. When that's water, there's a 16-inch or a bigger line coming from Lake Granbury that comes right across y'all's place now since you bought that land. And that water goes to Wolf Hollow 2. And that water that y'all take, you make steam to turn that turbine. And all of that steam don't go out that stack. Part of it goes up in the top of the fin fans, and you dissipate it back to water. Still got the contaminants in it, and it goes in your reserve pond out here. And then that reserve pond, eventually, that water is returned right back to the Brazos River. Well, you don't have those contaminants out of that water. And when it gets in that Brazos River, it just goes right back around to Lake Granbury, and they pick it up and set it right back to you again. And I found out in February, I found out just recently in February, they done a water sample in Lake Granbury, and there's already lead in that water. And they're trying to say, well, it's the people's pipes are old. That's baloney. Then they turn around and say, well, the valves were messed up. That's baloney too. Y'all know where that lead and where that mercury's coming from. Lake Granbury is supposed to be like a sportsman's paradise. But I guarantee you, I may not live to see it. I might too, because my people last a long time. But 20 years from now, there's nobody going to want to fish in Lake Granbury because the fish are going to have mercury in them. You're not going to be able to eat them. So I'm definitely opposed to y'all getting that permit. And she didn't get to finish about my wife, Virginia Browning. They sent that biopsy to the University of Michigan after they split her head open, drilled in her skull, and took a sample. They have no idea what that is. And it could be from y'all's pollution because there's doctors that study this. Matter of fact, we got some from a doctor. So now we got to wait 3 more months and put up with all y'all's stuff, which I think you already got the permit because you already built too much out there. It's not right. And y'all moved in on top of us. We didn't move in on y'all.
Thank you. Did Virginia Browning want to speak? Okay. Okay, thank you. So next up we have Doug Moore, Clint Helton, Austin Highsmith, Demetra Conrad, Demika Conrad, and then Jim and Monica Brown. So if you want to come on up here, we'll start with Doug Moore. The others, if you want to come to the front, so you'll be ready to go. So Doug Moore.
You already answered my question.
You're good? Okay. Clint Helton.
Hi, Clint Helton, Precinct Chair, Republican Precinct Chair of Hood County. My precinct is the northern half of Pecan Plantation, and a little bit outside of it down Rollins and Fall Creek Highway and Massey Road. And I've attended several forums, town halls in which and I know we're not here to discuss Bitcoin. I'm buying the Bitcoin mine, but that has to be considered for what I'm about to say, because I've heard all these testimonies of people whose lives have been dramatically affected, lives destroyed, health destroyed, property value destroyed, yet still expected to pay taxes though it wasn't, and the ranchers' cattle is affected, wildlife's run off. You heard all this. I'm saying what everybody else has said. So, and people around, especially around the plant, the Wolf Hollow plants, and but even people in my precinct have said these things. And I know y'all deferred many times tonight about how you can't really. What we're discussing really isn't pertinent to what you all are trying to do for this air permit, but it just seems to me government has figured out a way to mitigate liability and blame by saying that's not my department, go over here. So it's just like everything's funneled in toward this air quality, and that's all you can talk about. But it's ineffective. It doesn't. You can hear what people are saying, and what you guys are trying to present is the wrong solution. And somebody said about how you guys would never. I'm sure you never would live. You'd be in the audience if the same thing happened to you. And so again, and I know it's completely useless, as the previous gentleman said. They're probably already building. Oh, we get the permit. It's just a foregone conclusion. But industrialization breeds industrialization, and that whole area is going to be this big magnet for future industrialization projects, and God knows what happens if maybe you all are right and nothing will happen, and it'll all be just invalid concerns. But what if a couple, 3-4 years down the line we turn into a Flint, Michigan kind of thing, kind of story, and Aaron Brockovich kind of thing. So that's what my concern is, and I'm sure, and all these people are out here with those same concerns, and it's scary. It's scaring us. And so you're taking this turbines from 2 to 10, and as I said earlier, these power demands are going to go up, and you can't guarantee those turbines will stay at 40%. It's ridiculous. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Austin Highsmith, come on up and state your full name.
I'm John Highsmith. I'm speaking for Austin Highsmith. And first, I'm opposed to the issuance of a permit for Wolf Hollow 2's expansion. So that's clear. Let's consider emissions. The fact, natural gas plants emit approximately half the emissions of coal-powered plants. So natural gas is cleaner than coal, but it is not a clean fuel. In fact, natural gas is a marketing term, and it would be very much more accurate to call it fossil fuel gas. So by your letter, the proposed expansion will emit a significant, and that's where you really keep coming back to that word, significant amount of these air contaminants. I'm just briefly going to list them: carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, particulate matter, hazardous air pollutants, organic compounds, sulfur dioxide, sulfur hexafluoride, sulfuric acid mist, greenhouse gases like methane and ozone. So the question came earlier, what are the effects on humans? Let's assume it's over the permit limits, okay? I'm going to list those. Asthma, cardiovascular disease, increased risk of cancer, increased risk of neurological damage, long-term health effects. Exposure to 2.5 microns or less particulates is associated with increased mortality, meaning death, and cardiovascular and respiratory diseases. Long-term exposure can lead to chronic conditions and elevated mortality rates, particularly among the elderly. Let's talk about pecan plantation. It has a population of approximately 7,500 people, with over 60% over the age of 65. Mitchell Bend also has a significant percentage of population over 65. So, question, does TCEQ look at the number of at-risk residents around gas burners? And if not, why not? And also, what's really alarming is nitrogen dioxide and carbon monoxide have been associated with increased risk of Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia. And then let's talk about the children. Air pollution may cause delays in motor development and other issues. So I really would like to stress concerns about mercury, a very bad actor. And I don't see anything in all your permits about mercury. Fossil fuel gas has mercury up to 5,500 parts per million. Mercury bioaccumulates in aquatic systems. Wolf Hollow is very close to the Brazos River, Lake Granbury, and Squaw Creek Reservoir. Do we even know how much mercury is in incoming gas streams? Is that even tested? Have nearby aquatic systems been tested for mercury? So this expansion will be sited near 3 other gas burners, near people, and amazingly, they managed to pick a spot with a large elderly population nearby, near waterways that people recreate in. That's been talked about. And according to the Hood County Clean Air Coalition, it will most likely turn Hood County into a non-attainment area. One plant. And it layers more health problems on top of a community dealing with oral assault from Constellation's tenant.
Finish up that thought or turn it in. You're at 3 minutes. You can turn your paper in. I'm trying to be fair to give everyone the same amount. Councilwoman Conrad.
Hello, good evening. Mayor Pro Tem of Glen Rose, Texas, Somervell County, which borders Hood County. I want to start by reading you our city's vision statement. Glen Rose, a welcoming and unique, family-oriented community committed to preserving our natural beauty and historic small-town charm. Now, while that's Glen Rose's vision statement, I would be willing to bet that anybody in this audience and anyone in Hood County would say that that's what they're looking for in their community too. And pollution does not factor into that vision statement. So the first question we need to ask is, do we need more pollution? Like, is this a necessity? Sometimes it is. So maybe it is. Let's ask ourselves that. And we need to think about what we do at our home. So at our home, when we have a budget and we're bumping up against that budget, like you're bumping up against your pollution numbers, you got to take a look at what you're doing internally in your home. You don't go to your boss and say, I need more money because I can't pay my bills. You look at your bills and go, what do I need to do different? Maybe I need to cut Netflix. I'm going to yell at the kids to turn those lights off every dadgum day until they start doing it. You take accountability and ownership for your contribution to the problem before you reach out and ask for help. And so what I would say is, do we need more pollution? Is this absolutely necessary for the grid? Maybe. But I know for sure the answer is not yet. I know that for sure. Because up to 1/3 of the electricity already used at Wolf Hollow, I believe it's 2, is going to these Bitcoin computers. So just like I need to cut the Netflix if I need to make my budget, you guys need to start picking who you are allowing to leverage and use your pollution. Where is your pollution best spent? Where is my money best spent? And your pollution is best spent making sure that parents and grandparents can heat their homes, turn their air conditioners on, not make sure that a Bitcoin computer can keep trying to figure out the next lottery number. You're asking for citizens to suffer so that a lottery number can be picked. So the question to you is, do you need more? And can you confidently say, yes, we absolutely need it now for grid stability? And how can you say that if you're leveraging and letting an industry that destabilizes the grid then be the reason that you need to stabilize the grid? Do the right thing, get these energy suckers off of our ERCOT grid, and then come back and reevaluate. And I guarantee you, you don't have these folks here. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Jim Brown, followed by Monica Brown.
Had to lower it. Name is Jim Brown. Address is 3135 Brazos River Drive. I live 9 miles from Wolf Hollow. I'm asking that you do deny the permit. You say that you use conservative numbers. What if your conservative numbers are wrong? And you're talking on the conservative side. I mean, if it's above your conservative side, now what? Then you say that, the bigger issue that I have is the pollution is still going on. There is still a certain amount of pollution that you're saying governmentally is acceptable, but it is still happening. Now it is going to be, basically my understanding, ×4. So with that said, water, I heard water mentioned. It is my understanding, based on prior meetings, that you are actually going to be required to use or you need more water. You're taking more water from Granbury. If it's low, if we have a couple of bad summers, where's the water going to come from? And if that water is getting at all minuscule governmentally allowed amounts of pollution, is it not still polluting our waterways? So, as long, basically what I'm hearing is as the government is okay with it, then the public just needs to submit. Is more water going to be used? I think it is. And I think that the pollution is coming into our waterways. And this mercury and lead thing, I don't think that's going away. This plant is being put right in residential areas. It is just too much for the area you're wanting to build in. Therefore, also, how does the community keep the accountability I didn't hear is not in place. I don't think there's really accountable. There's maybe this monitor thing that's not really monitoring, but it's kind of monitored. There's just no real set limit of any kind that these people are living right by this stuff and they're having health issues. Also, is the company build up this plant, is it exempt from a class action suit? 1 minute, hurry. I feel like we're in the school board meeting. Any class, is there a class action suit? I mean, are you exempt from that? Or are you going to be held liable if in the event down the road there is an issue? Thank you.
Thank you. If you do not have enough time, you can turn in your comments or you can write your comments too. We also have Monica Brown.
Hi, I'm Monica Brown. My husband Jim Brown and I live, as he said, is it 6 miles? 9 miles. And I don't have a written speech for you. I just hope that you think of kindness and compassion and mercy And I hope that you think of, in our case, we still have 6 children at home. And we're raising them, and we do try to make it a healthy place for them, and we want it to be beautiful, and we certainly don't want to run around complaining about where we live and the injustice or the out-of-control factors. And when I say mercy and kindness, I say find another place that's not near children and families and elderly and people who are already suffering with asthma and things like that. And if that's within your power, that you would do that versus doing it here. So that's my request, that you would just really deeply consider, as others said, would you do this to yourself? And would you consider, what is the holdback on doing the same thing somewhere else that's further away from populations? I mean, Texas is huge, so surely there's a place. And of course, the United States as well. But to put it right in the middle of families and residents and elderly is really shocking. And I think we need to remember what Golden Rule and doing to others as you would have them doing to you, and just simple kindness and thought that's on a deeper level than just the financial gain. I'm sure it's going to be awesome for the people involved, but on the financial side, but for the people suffering, that would be something you would deeply consider, and as though it were you. That's what I'm asking you to do, is deeply consider as though it were you and your own children, your own grandmother. Yeah, that's what I hope. Thank you.
Okay, next grouping, I have Robert Tabor. Sorry. John Highsmith. I think John already went. Did you want your son to go? Or the other? He left. Okay. Okay. And then we have Nancy Rode, Helen Hensel, and Jerry Turner. So let's start with Robert. You want to come on up?
A couple of comments about the sheet that was given to me this evening.
State your full name first.
Okay. Robert M. Tabor, Jr., thank you. I'm the president of the board of directors of Pecan Plantation, community of 8,000 people surrounded by the Brazos. We're expected to grow to 11,000 by 2028. I'm real concerned for those residents, but I'm real concerned about our neighbors as well, people like Cheryl Shadden and all the folks that live out there. I hear that noise from my home on the Brazos in Pecan, and it's very damn annoying. Excuse me, I didn't mean to do that. But it is really annoying. And I've heard from legislatures and commissioners, you can't do anything about the noise. You guys are measuring air quality. But the pollution that we're skirting here a lot, is sound pollution. That's what's driving these people nuts. And don't hide behind a bureaucratic requirement. It says in your logo, take care of Texas. That's Texas right there. Take care of those people. Don't hide behind a rule or regulation. I understand you're in a tough spot, but take on a human position for a change. And look at these people. And your data is regionalized. This isn't a region. This is a community that's suffering from a lot of problems of noise. Hey, I'm an industrial guy too. I came from industry and high technology, but we took care of our local communities. We were good corporate citizens, and that's what these guys can be. I'm asking you as individuals to look at this thing different. Don't just look at air quality, look at the sound pollution as well, because it's really hurting people. If you lived out there, you'd be fighting for your family too. So I'm just asking you to consider something a little different than the rules and regulations. They're there for guidelines, but you people that make the decision can make a difference. And these gentlemen can make investments in that facility to snuff out most, if not all, that pollution. They can certainly do things about the sound. And if they're not doing it, you're not good corporate citizens. So think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Rode. I also have Daniel Rode, R-O-H-D-E. How about Jay and Courtney Pedrosa? Okay. Helen Hensel.
Hello, my name's Helen Hensel, and I live about 800 feet from the east of the plant in a Rancho, River Brazos, no, it's Brazos River Edition. My realtor did not make me aware of the Bitcoin plant, told me it was an electric plant, which I actually thought, oh boy, I'm gonna have cheap electric bills because I'm so close. I get charged a delivery fee from Texas, New Mexico Electric to go over your plant, so they charge me, I'm a widow, from $50 to $125 a month to deliver it to Reliant. And then I pay Reliant plus the delivery charge from Texas, New Mexico. Anyway, I'm a cancer survivor and diabetic, but on Labor Day weekend of this year in May, whatever blew up over there or whatever, turbine, everyone in the neighborhood came out, and we were all like, what is it? It was so loud, I thought my right eardrum had burst. So everybody told us just call, the police and complain. I did that, but they came out and it's not above whatever they said. And I said, well, you weren't out here an hour ago when this was happening. Anyway, I'm really upset that I didn't know that there was a Bitcoin plant. I thought it was an electric plant. My bad for asking the realtor and being lied to. But my concern is everyone in the neighborhood. Now, it's much better since May, since they put up the extra barrier, with the, looks like like balloons on the top. That has helped the noise considerably. But since I'm deathly allergic to sulfur, and when I was a pharmacy tech, I couldn't even count it with gloves on because it burns like, anyway, I'm really concerned about these 3 kinds of sulfur, and I don't know, I have to bring this to my doctor to see if I'm gonna have to take a loss and move, or if it's okay to live out there. Since the noise is less than it was, I've seen birds again, and hummingbirds and stuff, but still, I've never seen a squirrel out there, and I moved out there December 20th. So I've been there, 8 months, and like I said, since May, it's better, the noise, because I'm east of it. But anyway, I just really concerned about the air quality, and just hope y'all make the right decision to make sure that we're all safe. That's all.
Thank you. Jerry Turner. Okay, next up then Jim Bell, Chip Joslin, Alana and Christiana Brown, and Daniel Lackey. So we'll start with Jim Bell.
My name is Jim Bell. I live in Water's Edge in Granbury. I live about 6-ish miles from the plant, less than 7. I'm not a PhD, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a guy that does a little research here and there. And one of the things I found out when I was doing research on this, now I get all this about the air quality and about the pollution and the complaints that they've got. I get that. But what I stumbled on with sound pollution made my hair stand on end. Sound waves, they work like radio waves. The higher the frequency, the shorter the wave. The lower the frequency, the longer the wave. At 20 hertz, which is the lowest range we can hear, the wavelength of sound is over 17 meters. That means an insulation wall to protect us from that has to be 17 meters thick. Nobody's going to build that. I didn't find out how tall that would have to be. But I did Google how far low-frequency sound waves would travel, because it penetrates buildings, it penetrates people and animals and the land. And I found that it will travel hundreds of miles. Hundreds of miles. At 1 hertz, which is way below what we can hear. The wavelength of airborne sound is 343 meters. And those sound waves do exist, and they are being emitted by industry. Now, I get all this about the air pollution and things like this, but in my research, I'll tell you what I found. I found a woman that spent 30 years researching this stuff with her team and looking at vibroacoustic disease from infrasound, low frequency noise, below which we can hear. And I found that the DBA method of falling into compliance with regulations is invalid. DBA is based on what we can hear. It's designed to protect our hearing. But these low frequency sound waves, they thicken the membranes around our heart. They thicken the membranes around our brain. Autopsies of people who have been exposed to this stuff over periods of time have found that their arteries and veins, their walls have been thickened almost to the point of being choked off. And Virginia Browning, I think it's very possible that you're looking at the after effects of being exposed to things like this. Ultra low frequency sound. That's my timer, isn't it?
It is.
I have printouts that I would like to put up here and let you look at it. And on that printout is a link to a lecture given by this expert. And it also has her qualifications. These are not my qualifications. The only reason they're mine is because I stole them myself.
Turn them in and I will take them. Thank you. I have Chip Jocelyn next.
Hello again, Madam Chair. Thank you. Chip Jocelyn from Somervell County, former City Council member and Mayor Pro Tem. I'm currently the Republican nominee for County Commissioner Precinct 3, which borders Precinct 2, which is where you guys are. So I think we have an incredibly volatile situation here, and I don't know if you guys know the scope of what's going on, how much research you've done with this particular property and what all that's happened there. And I implore you to do more, because it's not good. I'm obviously not in favor of this permit on any level for any reason, because this is just going to make the situation there for Hood County residents and Somervell County residents worse, way worse. I believe you do have to look at the setting. I know it's been brought up a couple times earlier, but you're not in an industrial complex. You're in a neighborhood with elderly and retirees and children and families and schools. Like a lot of these folks said, they were there first. You guys are encroaching and coming in and taking their land and their serenity and what they wanted for their family. And you know, you guys have an opportunity to do the right thing, to do the righteous thing. You can look at the testimony. Again, I want you to do your own research on what's going on out there. It's scary. I mean, a lot of people are hurting. A lot of people are sick. You have to look at the current conditions and the noise that's coming from the neighbor next door. I mean, I know your concentration is on the air, but this isn't going to help it. So this situation is not going to help it at all. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Alana and Christiana Brown. State your full name first, okay?
Okay. My name is Alana Brown, and I would like to thank you for your time. I am speaking on behalf of the children of Granbury. I'm trusting that the leaders are looking out for my future and the future of my children. The decisions you make will impact my children. Already, The decisions you make will impact many children. Already, children are experiencing headaches, foggy brains, loss of hearing due to the sound issue, and it will further impact our community if it is expanded. Pollution is in the air, and water is a major concern too. I also hope that I won't have problems when I'm older. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Christiana?
Good evening, my name is Christiana Brown. I am 18 years old. Tonight I represent many young people who are dealing with all kinds of health issues due to the constant noise, frequency, and air pollution in Wolf Hollow. We ask that you do not allow the expansion of Wolf Hollow 2 because it will impact generations of children dealing with possible learning disabilities due to health issues. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Daniel Lackey? Lakey? Okay. Thank you.
My name is Daniel Lakey. I live at 8225 Contrary Creek. I am roughly a half a mile. I get to look at the power plant every single day of my life. But I moved in. I came in on your territory, but I never dreamed that we were going to get any more. I would like to thank Representative Burns for showing up, the folks from Senator Birdwell's office. I'd like to thank y'all for being here. Let him know he lost my vote when he approved the grant for this plant. And if he doesn't start protecting Hood County, I'll run against him. So I'm actually from Arlington. I've been here about 3 years. And I want to compare for TCEQ the Handley plant versus this plant, because they're roughly about the same amount of power between the two. The Handley plant's the one that comes up on Lake Arlington. It is in an industrial area. It's roughly about 4.5 square miles. It gets to be about 8 square miles if you include the area around the lake. That's an industrial area. That's where a power plant should be. And even there, it might be too close to people. There is not an inch of property that this plant here borders that is not someone's residence. With the exception of there is an estate that was built. They bought it so that they could turn it into people's properties. This is where people live. This is where people grow their products. This is not an industrial area. I don't have a problem with the plant that's there. I moved in under it. I'm fine with that. Expansion, it's too big for the area. Hood County is about 240 square miles. That's a small county. Where Ted Cruz just recently bought his Bitcoin, where he started doing that, down in Pecos County, is 2,400 square miles, about 10 times the size. They've got one person for every, or I think it's 13 people for every square mile. We've got 161. Tarrant County is about 2,400. So I know why they're not in Tarrant County, because there's too many people, but there's too many people here, and we're only growing. We're a very small county, and the damage that can be done is going to be irreversible with their air quality. Okay? Not to mention, unfortunately, you guys have not been very trustworthy because you brought in a tenant that are killing people. And when my wife dies, you'll hear about it. And she's not here because she's too sick to be here. My kids had to move away because of the problems of the sound from that. So I don't want TEC to do it because we can't do the air quality. We can't have the water pollution. And quite frankly, they're just not trustworthy enough for them to monitor themselves wherever your county person is.
Thank you. Next up, Andrew Wolford. How about, so there's no Andrew Wolford. Oh, you are? Okay. Come on up. And then after Andrew, we have Carolyn Reeves, and then Dave Eagle.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Andrew J. Wolford, for the record. And first, my thesis statement is this permitting process, with all due respect, it's in place and it's codified, but it is not evaluating the practical aspects of this proposed plant expansion realistically. And I'm going to go through a few challenges to you to try and satisfy the people of Granbury. to go beyond that basis of permitting and answer these questions. What's happening here is the applicant who wants to add power to the grid is providing data and information to the agency according to a prescriptive formula, and they're determining if criteria are met. That's the sum total of this exchange tonight. I want the following challenges to be entered into the record to perform a realistic, common sense evaluation of whether this is the right place to put this plant. I have 3 areas of concern. 1, something I brought up on the question and answer session, plant cycling. We've already been told this plant will not operate 100% of its duty cycle, that it's going to be at 40 at best, that all these units will be cycling up and down all the time. I think that you need to take into account those planned up and down extreme shutdown startups and the potential for generation of different and greater amounts of pollution. And don't just go with a factor on top of fuel consumption provided to you by General Electric. Number 2, and this is more over here to TCEQ. The dispersion model, although it's well tried and true, I'm going to challenge you to carry out a more rigorous analysis of any extreme conditions which could lead to more than what you call a worst case for pollutants that will possibly be driven by climate change, and I better be speeding up here. And secondly, validation of that dispersion model for all pollutant chemicals. And finally, and probably most importantly, is this site selection process by TCEQ is very simplistic. And as such, it doesn't consider more important aspects of the decision. Other agencies carry out what is called an environmental impact assessment, which not only considers which also considers a full range of environmental, health, safety, and social impacts to all impacted resources. It's far more thorough, and perhaps most importantly, it requires a comparison of your nominated or preferred site against an alternate site against a do-nothing alternative. I would like to see all of those performed, even though they may be beyond the TCEQ de minimis requirements.
Thank you. Carolyn Reeves. Carolyn Reeves. How about Dave Eagle?
Yeah, I'm Dave Eagle, Commissioner for Precinct 4 here. And thank you guys for coming and sitting here and being human pinatas tonight. I know it's a tough job, and I get that. First of all, I want to get on the record that I was told by a company representative this evening that you will not be coming to the county seeking a tax abatement under the Texas Tax Code. So I just want to get that on the record. And I would ask you to reconsider your business relationship with Marathon. I'm a recovering lawyer, and I'm sorry. Hi, Dave. And I did a lot of asbestos work when I was in practice. And I got a call from a lawyer a couple of weeks ago. Marathon is starting to get attention from across the nation with the legal counsel. And doing the asbestos work, I can tell you the lawyers sued the asbestos manufacturers out of existence. And you don't want lawyers coming after you, and they'll try to reach through Marathon to get to you. So right now, from what I've seen, is Marathon has had adding zero value to this community. So I would ask you guys, as the company who's supplying them their energy and seeking this permit that you're probably going to get, to please reconsider your business relationship. Most of what you heard is in reaction to Marathon, not really you personally, for sure, not you personally. But I would ask you to reconsider that, because lawyers know how to get into your bank account. And maybe you might want to think about doing business with Marathon down the road. And maybe reconsider not doing business with them. So you've heard a lot here today, and there's a lot of people here who are not happy, but most of it's about Marathon and Bitcoin. So please think about that. Take it to whoever you're going to go talk to with your company, and say you heard it here from a lawyer that knows how to sue people. So thank you.
Thank you. Shanice and Travis Copenhaver. And then after them, we have Monica Vickery.
My name is Shanice Copenhaver, and I'm speaking to formally oppose the proposed permit 165173. As someone with asthma and as a concerned parent, I am deeply troubled by the potential health and environmental impacts of this permit to go along with our current health and environmental issues. The pollutants associated with this permit, such as particulate matter and volatile organic compounds, can exacerbate respiratory conditions like asthma, leading to increased health risks for myself and my family. Children are particularly vulnerable to these significant pollutants, which can impair lung development and lead to chronic respiratory issues. Beyond the personal health issues, the emissions from the permit can contribute to broader environmental issues, such as poor air quality and increased greenhouse gas concentrations. This can lead to deteriorating local air quality and negatively affect the already affected nearby ecosystems and wildlife. My in-laws live off the Brazos, and my children play and swim in that river. The pollutants are going to take that away from them. Additionally, the operations associated with this permit may add added pressure on the local electric grid, potentially leading to increased energy consumption and greater environmental impact. Recently, we lost electricity, and Marathon and Wolf Hollow still had electricity. This will exacerbate the environmental issues already outlined and affect energy reliability and the cost for the community. Given these concerns, I respectfully request a full denial of this permit. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Travis, are you passing? Okay. Come on up and state your full name.
Hi, my name is Monica Vickery, and I'm one of the co-founders for the Texas Coalition Against Crypto Mining. And our organization is asking y'all to not give this permit. I'm sure that they need the energy to sell back to the Bitcoin miners. I want the citizens of Texas to understand that y'all are paying for the Bitcoin mines. When they close down, they save that energy, then they sell it back to ERCOT at a premium price, up to 100%. So when they shut down in the Bitcoin mine by us, they get a 2.5 cent cost. I pay 17 cents. Okay? Some of y'all pay up as much as 25 cents. So when they shut down and they come back online, they sell it back to ERCOT at a premium price. It's damaging our waters. We're using the electricity that we need, and the grid itself is not that stable. So when we're asked to shut down, we don't get paid for it. So why are they? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next three, we have Adrian Shelley, Lisa McDermott, Nanette Samuelson.
Hello, Adrian Shelley from Public Citizen. Appreciate the opportunity to deliver comments today. I have submitted written comments already. I just want to say one thing about them, and that is regarding the PM 2.5 calculations. So, first of all, the annual standard, the difference between the allowable increment and the increment consumed is, it's 3 micrograms per meter cubed, but there's a lot of reason to think that there's just not that much room First of all, the averaging time you use is 2020 to 2022. 2020 and 2021 were the lowest years for particulate matter in a long time due to the pandemic. And if you look at even 2021 to 2023, it's already going back up. So I've got data from the nearest monitor, which is in Dallas, the nearest couple of monitors. And you can see one of them in particular, it's already at 10.3, so it's already violating the standard. So there's just a real concern about, whether as particulate matter continues to go up, whether it's going to stay under the standard. And then it's really unfortunate that the permit, the way it's written, it doesn't just plainly state the hours of operation for the facility, right? If you look at the pounds per hour limits and then the tons per year limit, it seems like maybe it's saying like 100 hours a year, but that seems incredibly low. There's the total BTU throughput, but there's no rate of consumption of energy, so there's no way to figure out the hours of operation. It sure seems like it's way under that 40% capacity factor. That's 3,500 hours a year. But we need to be sure, going forward, right, that we don't exceed that 40% capacity factor. It's not really clear who's going to monitor that, whether it's the EPA or the TCEQ or both or nobody. It's not really clear. So I think that's all that I really have to say, beyond what's in my comments. I will just also say, and this is really for the benefit of the people behind me, after today, the best remedy that you're going to have is the contested case hearing process, right? So I encourage you, if you live close to the facility, again, this is for y'all, if you live close to the facility, get a contested case hearing request in now, because that's going to be your opportunity to continue to participate in the process after today. So thank you. Appreciate you all being out here.
Thank you. Did you want to turn that paperwork in?
Yeah, they're on the site, but you can have that one.
Perfect. Thank you. Lisa McDermott?
Hi, I'm Lisa McDermott. I'm here to request and ask that the TCEQ deny this permit due to the already documented and commented health concerns. So I am a health professional, and I work in the integrative and functional health realm. This means we look kind of outside of traditional causes. We look at root causes, including things like pollution, toxins, stress. Okay, all of these things have been mentioned here tonight. I'd like to read some things that were listed on the EPA's website just today that I pulled this. Despite years of progress in reducing pollution from the electric power sector, fossil fuel-fired power plants remain a leading source of air, water, and land pollution that affects communities nationwide. That was just today. Also, they state that every year, pollution from power plants causes fine particle and ground-level ozone-related premature deaths, new asthma cases, and asthma exacerbations, heart attacks, and lost school and work days. Also, many of those were mentioned here today. Also mentioned by the EPA, power plants are the largest source of airborne emissions of mercury, a potent neurotoxin which affects the nervous system and brain functions, particularly in infants and children, and is known to cause other significant health effects. You heard from a child today who's concerned about her own health as well as other children in the community and her future health. There's also data, I looked at a study, looking at mean air concentrations of particulate matter 10 and nitrogen oxide, which were higher after the start of the operation. I know one of the things discussed tonight was the start and stop. So they were higher at the start. And with highest concentrations within about a little over half a mile, 0.62 miles, in the elderly, there was a positive correlation between the number of emergency visits and daily air concentrations of particulate matter 10 and nitrogen oxides as measured at, again, 0.62 miles, and then again at 1.8 miles. In subjects aged 70 years or more, the number of hospital admissions was positively correlated with the PM10 levels. Again, this is only at 1.8 miles from the power plant. In older subjects, 80 or greater in age, it was also significantly linked with the lowest air concentration of PM10. Okay, so again, the higher the risk is correlated with the age. Again, it's been mentioned, this is an aging population here. So again, I work in a field where I'm constantly seeing a number of people who are coming to me with many of the same health concerns here. So I ask that you deny this permit and put people over numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Nanette Samuelson?
Thank you. I'm Nanette Samuelson. I'm the Commissioner for Precinct 2 in Hood County. On August 27th, the Hood County Commissioners Court unanimously passed a resolution calling for the denial of this air quality permit. The resolution was mailed to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality Office of the Chief Clerk at P.O. Box 13087, Austin, Texas, 78711, 3087. So if you haven't seen that, I would ask you to go look at that and read it. I'm going to read parts of it. Some of it has already been covered by other speakers. Whereas the resolution declaring the harm to Hood County that would be caused by construction and operation of 8 additional natural gas-fired peaking combustion turbine generators at the existing Wolf Hollow 2 power plant in Hood County, Texas. And it talks about the request, but the part that's really concerning is whereas a non-attainment area is a geographical region that fails to meet national abatement air quality standards for one or more criteria, pollutants such as ozone, particulate matter, lead, carbon monoxide, sulfur oxides, nitrogen oxides. Being a non-attainment area affects existing local businesses by imposing stricter environmental regulations and increasing costs. We know when businesses have increased costs, it causes increasing costs to all of the people that live and do business with those businesses. Businesses planning to relocate or expand in such areas must apply rigorous pollution controls that may lead to obtain emission offset credits. This may lead to increasing costs and potential discouragement of new investments in Hood County. So please look for that. We unanimously voted for you to not approve that air quality permit, but what I really want to say is I'm tired. I'm tired of Mammoth Companies, Constellation, $54 billion market cap, Marathon, $6 billion market cap, taking advantage of my constituents. This would not be happening if this was happening in Catalina Bay. You are taking advantage of people that are just trying to make a living and make ends meet. That is not right. ERCOT says that the grid has to double by 2030, and that a large part of that is due to the Bitcoin currency plant that's your tenant. Not only are they increasing the cost of energy for everyone because of the amount of energy that they're using, but they also make money by selling it back to you at a premium. And we've already talked about that. So please read that resolution. Think about the people that you're impacting. These are people that are just trying to make a living, trying to do battle with a $54 billion company.
Thank you. So at this point, I have gone through everyone who has asked to speak. If anyone who has not asked to speak but would like to speak now, please feel free to come up. If you have not had an opportunity to speak but want to provide formal comments now, you may come up. And I would just ask that you check in with the registration desk afterwards so that we can make sure we get your information. So state your full name and go ahead.
Richard Burning, City of Glenrose. First and foremost, I want to voice my opposition to this permit. I'm going to start with the ending. That's our goal. Now, what do I really think is going to happen? I think this is just a formality. I think that they picked a 40% number so that they can make sure that it passes. I expect that it's going to pass because I think this is just smoke and mirrors. And I think in 2026 or 2027, there's going to be a new permit process to increase that 40%. These people know that it's not going to stay at 40%. We know it's going to go up. It's going to go up to 100%. Y'all are going to turn around and say, hey, we need more energy. We need more energy. Why? Because we're doubling Bitcoins. And everybody here's rates keep going up. We understand the part of that. But the real problem is the Bitcoin mines. Get rid of the Bitcoin mine, our prices will probably drop to where we can afford our electric bills. I have a $600 a month, this last month's electric bill.
I'm sure some of these people probably have a lot higher. I don't know if you have higher. You may even have a discounted rate since you're employees. That's not the point. The point is, I don't want to be the one paying for that. Think about where your bills are. Think about what you're spending your money on. Cut where it needs to be cut. Take care of these people. Thank you.
Thank you. State your full name.
Okay. Hi there, my name is James Wall, and we were talking a little bit earlier in the questions and answer session about what pollutants are coming out of the plant, how far those reach out, and if we're taking any precautions. And those are things that we have to really look at addressing with the Wolf Hollow plant. As I stated earlier tonight, my mother's an asthmatic. I also am a nursing student in my senior year, and I have a passion for healthcare and for helping sick people get better. But whenever you start seeing sulfuric acid mist, carbon monoxide, and other particular matter going ahead and being put out into the air, it goes ahead and raises concern. And I think as a result, what we need to be doing is we need to pump the brakes on this plant real fast, take a second look at it, and truly dig in and see, how far is this going to spread out? Are we going to make sure it's only within maybe within the half a mile radius? Or is this going to spread out to a point of where people in Granbury, people in Glenrose, people in Stephenville are being affected by such a plant as this? It's not saying no outright, but what it is saying is that we need to figure out more, and there are more questions unanswered than there are answered. And for those reasons, I'm asking for y'all to reject this permit bid so we can go ahead and further dig into this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who's not had a chance to talk that would like to talk? Okay, thank you very much for coming tonight, for your comments. I also want to thank our elected officials, our staff from Senator Birdwell, and also for Representative Burns for asking for this public meeting. I want to thank the applicant staff and TCEQ staff for being here. As noted, a final decision has not been made on this application and will not be made tonight. Be sure you turn in any written statements you made before the close of the meeting. So staff over at the registration table can take any statements that you've written, or if you didn't get enough time on the comment on formal comments tonight, you may turn in that information. The agency staff will review formal comments provided during this meeting, as well as other formal comments made through mail, fax, and e-comments during the comment period before making a final decision. Individuals on the mailing list will continue to receive information regarding this proposed permit application. If you are wanting to reach the Office of Public Interest Counsel, their telephone number is 512-239-6363. And now this meeting is finished. Feel free to email or telephone staff if you have any further questions. Thank you and good night.